Dark tunnels of a football stadium are not just made of concrete and echoing footsteps, they carry the whispers of destiny. From the shadows of Lille to the blinding lights of Stamford Bridge, there was one name that fans across the world would soon chant with awe, fear and admiration: Eden Hazard. A boy with the ball at his feet, a smile that seemed innocent, but with the capacity to shatter defensive lines like glass. His journey did not begin with headlines or trophies, but with a promise, an unspoken oath to the game itself, that one day, football would bend to his imagination. And for a while it did, but as every great story reminds us, the higher the rise, the more painful the fall. Before Madrid, before the heartbreak, before the questions of what if, there was London, and there was glory, and the world believed nothing could touch him. They said Hazard wasn't just playing football, he was painting with it. At Lille, he was already different. The boy didn't run, he glided. Defenders didn't chase him, they prayed he would misstep. By 2012, the European elite circled like hawks waiting to snatch him. Manchester United wanted him. Manchester City wanted him. Real Madrid even lingered in the shadows, sensing his future connection. But Hazard, in his own cheeky style, announced his next move on social media. "I'm signing for the Champions League winner," a simple sentence that sent shockwaves across Europe. Chelsea had just conquered Europe under Roberto Di Matteo in dramatic fashion, and now, they had landed the brightest young star. It wasn't just a signing. It was a declaration that the future of Stamford Bridge had arrived. When he stepped onto English soil, Hazard wasn't just another recruit, he was the show. His debut season in 2012 was electric. The Premier League, known for its unforgiving pace and physicality, seemed like a perfect stage for Hazard's defiance. First touch acceleration, the low center of gravity that made him untouchable. He wasn't intimidated, he was in control. He toyed with defenders, pulled crowds to the edge of their seats, and from the very beginning, the whispers began. This kid, he might be special. Chelsea fans, still drunk from Champions League glory, found in Hazard the promise of an entertainer, a magician, someone who would turn Stamford Bridge into a theater of dreams. But greatness demands more than talent, it demands moments. Hazard understood this. His goals weren't just numbers on a scoreboard, they were messages. In his first seasons, he tormented Arsenal, ran through Manchester United's midfield, and dismantled Tottenham with effortless flair. Managers changed. Di Matteo, Benitez, Mourinho, Conte. But Hazard was the constant. No matter the chaos around him, he carried the ball, carried the responsibility, carried the hope. By 2014, he was no longer the apprentice, he was the master. And in 2015, under Jose Mourinho, he reached the summit. Hazard was named the PFA Player of the Year. Chelsea lifted the Premier League trophy. And Hazard wasn't just a star, he was the sun around which everything revolved. Yet even at the height of his glory, there was an air of mystery. Hazard wasn't built like Ronaldo, sculpted in the gym, obsessed with perfection. He wasn't Messi, a prodigy from birth, engineered to break records. Hazard was different. He looked casual, almost too relaxed, smiling as if he wasn't fully aware of the devastation he was causing. But make no mistake, behind the easy smile was ruthlessness. He had the gift of making football look easy, and perhaps that was the most dangerous weapon of all. For defenders, there was nothing more terrifying than a player who could ruin your career without breaking a sweat. As the seasons rolled on, the legend grew. Stamford Bridge became his canvas, every touch a brushstroke, every dribble a masterpiece. Fans called him the Wizard of London. Journalists called him unplayable. Opponents simply called him a nightmare. Hazard didn't just score goals, he scored the kind that lived in memory. Against Liverpool, he picked up the ball in his own half, danced past red shirts like ghosts, and slotted home with icy precision. Against Arsenal, he bulldozed through their entire defense, leaving Coquelin spinning helplessly in circles. These weren't just highlights, they were proof of his place among football's elite. But football, like life, thrives on contrasts. Every bright light casts a shadow. And while Hazard shone in London, storm clouds were already gathering on the horizon. Injuries lurked like silent assassins. Rumors of Madrid, whispers of destiny, refused to go away. Chelsea fans loved him, but they feared one thing, that the wizard who made them believe could one day vanish. And Hazard himself sometimes, when the camera lingered on him after a match, behind the smile, there was something else, something unspoken. Was it restlessness? Was it longing? Or was it the beginning of a story that would twist into heartbreak? The hook of Hazard's tale is simple, yet devastating. How can a man who had everything, glory, love, magic, watch it unravel before his own eyes? For now in London he was untouchable, but fate, cruel and unforgiving, was preparing its hand. A transfer would come, a dream would come, and with it, the greatest test of his life. The boy who made football look effortless would soon discover the brutal weight of expectation, and the story of Eden Hazard would shift from glory to struggle. Picture the roar of Stamford Bridge under the floodlights. The blue sea of fans swaying, voices uniting in anticipation, and then silence. A ball rolls to Eden Hazard's feet, Time seems to stop, he lowers his body, eyes scanning defenders circling, and in a heartbeat, the silence explodes into chaos. Hazard is gone, weaving through bodies like a phantom, the ball glued to his boots. The crowd doesn't just cheer, they gasp, they scream, they rise. This was not football as they knew it. This was cinema, and Hazard was the director. His game had rhythm like a soundtrack only he could hear. In one moment, a sudden burst of acceleration. In the next, a pause, a hesitation, a look, as though he was daring defenders to step closer. And when they did, he punished them. Against Arsenal, he picked up the ball deep, surged forward, shrugged off challenges, sent Francis Coquelin spinning helplessly, and buried the finish. The goal wasn't just a score, it was a short film, drama, tension, climax, release. Even rival fans applauded. Hazard's brilliance wasn't numbers, it was art. Under Mourinho's second spell, Hazard became Chelsea's crown jewel. The 2014-15 season was his masterpiece. Week after week he delivered moments of magic, slicing open defenses, carrying Chelsea's attack on his shoulders. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't the most muscular, but he was the heartbeat. Mourinho called him the best player in England. The press labeled him unplayable. And when Chelsea lifted the Premier League, Hazard, with his effortless grin, looked as though he had done it without breaking a sweat. He was named PFA Player of the Year. The Premier League belonged to him. Yet even within triumph, cinema loves contrast. The following season Chelsea collapsed. Mourinho was sacked, players were criticized, and Hazard himself seemed a shadow of the magician he had been. Injuries crept in, goals dried up, and whispers began. Had the fire dimmed? But Hazard Trictor used this as setup for a comeback story. Under Antonio Conte in 2016-17 he rediscovered his rhythm. Chelsea's 3-4-3 system gave him freedom, and once again Hazard became unplayable. With N'Golo Kante behind him, Diego Costa beside him, Hazard thrived, dazzling fans as Chelsea stormed to another title. It was redemption, and it was cinematic perfection. Act 2 of a saga unfolding before the world. Some players dominate with power, others with precision. Hazard dominated with unpredictability. Defenders never knew if he would sprint, stop, cut inside, or glide past them with a shimmy of the hips. He carried the ball like it was part of him. His dribbles smooth, his movements hypnotic. Commentators often compared him to Lionel Messi, not in statistics, but in style. Like Messi, Hazard carried the aura of inevitability. When he touched the ball, something extraordinary was about to happen. And then came the World Cup of 2018, a stage too bright to ignore. Belgium, golden generation, loaded with stars: De Bruyne, Lukaku, Courtois, but it was Hazard who stole the show. Against Brazil in the quarterfinals, he was untouchable, carrying the ball 10, 20, 30 yards at a time, absorbing fouls, never losing control. Even Neymar, the global superstar, was outshined that night. Belgium went on to finish third, their best ever World Cup finish, and Hazard was named second best player of the tournament, only behind Luka Modric. For many, it was proof. Hazard was among the top 3 players in the world, standing tall beside Messi and Ronaldo. This wasn't just football, it was a blockbuster, and Hazard was the lead actor. But behind the glamour, a plot twist lingered. Madrid. For years, the Bernabeu had whispered his name. Hazard had openly admitted he dreamed of wearing the famous white shirt, of following in the footsteps of his idol Zinedine Zidane. Chelsea fans clung to hope, but every dazzling performance seemed to push him closer to Spain. By 2019, the story was inevitable. Chelsea, facing a transfer ban, fought to keep him. Hazard delivered one last masterpiece, a Europa League final against Arsenal in Baku. He scored twice, assisted once, and walked off the pitch with a smile that concealed the truth. In his post-match interview, he finally admitted, "I think it's goodbye." It was cinematic to the last detail. The hero, having conquered England, walking off into the sunset, ready to face the challenge of his dreams. Fans wept, but they understood. Hazard had given Chelsea 7 years of magic, 2 Premier League titles, countless unforgettable goals. He wasn't just leaving, he was graduating to the grandest stage of all: Real Madrid. The Bernabeu, the Galacticos, the place where legends were forged. It felt like the perfect script, as if every scene of his career had been building to this. And so, in the summer of 2019, the curtain closed on Hazard's Chelsea chapter. For a then-club record fee of over 100 million, Eden Hazard stood before the flashing cameras of Madrid, holding the white shirt, smiling, waving to tens of thousands of fans in the Bernabeu. The boy who had lit up Lille, who had conquered London, was now ready to rule Spain. The cameras clicked, the chants echoed, and the story seemed destined for a glorious climax. Yet cinema has a cruel trick. It gives you the illusion of perfection before it rips it away, and for Eden Hazard, the drama was only just beginning. When Eden Hazard walked onto the pitch of the Santiago Bernabeu for the first time, it was supposed to be the beginning of a fairy tale. Tens of thousands of Madridistas filled the stands, holding their phones high, chanting his name, ready to embrace their new Galactico. He smiled, juggled the ball, waved to the fans, and for a fleeting moment, it felt as though destiny had delivered. Hazard in white under the Spanish sun, it was perfect. But dreams, as cruel as they are beautiful, often demand sacrifice, and Hazard's dream would soon turn into a nightmare he could never have imagined. The weight of the shirt was not just fabric, it was history. Ronaldo's departure had left a void, and Madrid believed Hazard was the man to fill it, a king without a crown waiting to be claimed. But almost immediately, cracks appeared. His first preseason was overshadowed by whispers. He wasn't in peak condition, he looked heavier, slower. The Spanish press, merciless in their judgment, fired their first bullets. Hazard shrugged it off with a smile, but beneath it, doubt began to creep in. He was no longer in London, where his aura made him untouchable. Here in Madrid, every move was magnified, every mistake amplified. Then came the injuries, small at first but relentless. A knock, a strain, a twisted ankle. Each time, the comeback was delayed, and each time, the questions grew louder. Where was the Hazard that destroyed Arsenal? Where was the Hazard that danced past Brazil? Fans who once welcomed him with love now stared with impatience. The Bernabeu, known for its passion, turned cold. Whistles replaced cheers. Every misstep felt like betrayal. For Hazard, the field, once a sanctuary, now became a battlefield, not against defenders but against his own body. Still he tried. In flashes, there were glimpses, the quick dribble, the cheeky smile, the effortless glide. But they never lasted. Every time hope returned, injury dragged him back into the shadows. Madrid moved on, relying on Benzema, Modric and later Vinicius Jr. Hazard, once the protagonist, became a supporting act barely remembered. He watched from the sidelines as his teammates lifted La Liga, as they marched to Champions League glory. Victories he was a part of on paper but not in presence. For a man who once carried Chelsea on his shoulders, it was torture to stand powerless applauding from the bench. The emotional weight was crushing. Hazard, always known for his joy, his laughter, began to change. Cameras caught him in training, smiling less, walking slower. Rumors swirled. Was he finished? Was the dream over before it had begun? And then came the most devastating truth: the Eden Hazard that London adored, that Belgium worshipped, was gone. His body betrayed him, his spark dimmed, his confidence fractured. The Madrid dream had turned into a slow-motion tragedy. But tragedy is not just about failure, it's about loss. Hazard didn't lose his skill, he lost his freedom. The freedom to run without fear, to dribble without pain, to play without pressure. Every sprint risked another setback, every tackle another month in recovery. For the fans, frustration boiled into anger. For Hazard, it was heartbreak. He had wanted Madrid all his life, and now that he was here, he couldn't be the hero he dreamed of. The cruel irony of football had struck again. Sometimes, destiny gives you the stage only to steal your voice. In moments, he showed why Madrid bought him. The touch against Paris, the spark against Granada, the drive against Eibar. But they were fragments, not chapters. And football is not remembered in fragments. It is remembered in legacies. Hazard's Madrid legacy was being written in silence, in absence, in questions of what might have been. The man who once painted masterpieces in London now sat watching others write history in Spain. And yet, perhaps the deepest cut was his own laughter. After a Champions League elimination against Chelsea, cameras caught him smiling with his former teammates, laughing in a moment when Madrid fans were drowning in sorrow. For them, it was betrayal. For Hazard, maybe it was just a brief escape, a reminder of happier days. But perception matters, and from that day the bond between Hazard and Madridistas fractured beyond repair. The love affair had ended, not with glory, but with bitterness. By the time the seasons passed, Hazard was no longer a hero, no longer a Galactico. He was a cautionary tale. From the most electrifying winger in England to a forgotten figure on Madrid's bench, his story became a reminder that even the brightest stars can fade. And as he sat there, watching others live the dream he had longed for, one question lingered in the air, haunting, painful, inescapable. How could a man so gifted, so adored, fall so far, so fast? The Santiago Bernabeu has witnessed legends rise and fall. It has celebrated icons, condemned failures, and immortalized greatness. But Eden Hazard's story in Madrid was different. It wasn't defined by betrayal or lack of effort. It was defined by time, by fragility, by the cruel truth that sometimes the body cannot follow where the heart wants to go. And so, as seasons passed, Hazard's role shifted from savior to spectator, his once golden dream dissolving into whispers of regret. The dramatic irony of football is merciless. Hazard left Chelsea at the peak, believing Madrid would be his masterpiece, only to discover his canvas had already begun to crack. Every injury was another brushstroke of despair, every missed game another scene in a tragedy. For a player who built his career on freedom, Madrid became a prison of expectations. He was compared not to himself but to Ronaldo, to Galacticos of the past. And in that comparison, no smile, no dribble, no fleeting flash of brilliance could save him. His departure from Madrid came quietly, without parades, without the applause he once commanded. The man who had arrived with fireworks and chance left in silence, his contract terminated, his dream reduced to headlines of disappointment. Hazard, the boy who once promised magic, the man who once painted London blue, walked away not with trophies in his hands, but with the weight of what if on his shoulders. It was not the ending he imagined, but it was the ending he received. And yet, in the ashes of his Madrid years lies a truth that cannot be erased. Eden Hazard at his peak was unstoppable, unforgettable. In London he was art, joy, chaos, and brilliance rolled into one. He gave Chelsea fans nights they will never forget. He carried Belgium to history on the world stage. His story is not just about the struggles in Madrid. It is about the glory that came before, the magic that millions witnessed, the legacy that still lives in highlight reels and memories. Hazard's name may not shine in Madrid's halls of legends, but in football's grand story, his light still flickers, stubborn and eternal. And so the curtain falls, not with triumph, not with redemption, but with a haunting silence. Hazard's journey was a film of two halves, glory in London, struggles in Madrid. For some, he will always be the lost Galactico. For others, he will forever be the wizard who made the impossible look effortless. And maybe that is the beauty of it. His story remains unfinished in our minds, suspended between greatness and heartbreak, a tale of what was and what could have been.